The one reframe that changed Will's view on his clients in a single meeting, and the 6-step playbook that took him from dentists are cheap to twice the revenue. Two of Will's clients left when he raised his prices. He called it a bonus. 6 months earlier, Will was convinced his clients were too cheap to ever pay a penny more, but he doubled his prices anyway, and this is exactly how he did it.
So Will runs an MSP serving dental practices. His monthly recurring revenue was around $40,000. And he was under that pressure. He thought he needed more clients, but he was wrong. The answer wasn't a bigger book. It wasn't more. It was a better book. And the difference is the entire reason most MSP owners are stuck.
I'm Joe Rojas, and I built and I sold 3 MSPs.
And I'm Jeff Lair. We're going to get you the 6-step pricing playbook that Will used, the conversation that made it work, and the one bucket of clients you should actually let leave on purpose.
So let's start with what most MSPs owners do when they finally decide it's time to raise price. I did this with my first MSP. Will did this before he came to us. And you've probably done it too. You draft an email, something about raising costs of tools, labor, licensing, cost of living adjustment, rates going up, 8% effective next quarter. You hit send, and the explosions come in. Your biggest client pushes back. The office manager calls. You panic. You grandfather a few of them. You cut the increase in half, and then you end up bumping prices 3%, and you tell yourself that you did the thing, but you didn't. You sent a bill change, not a pricing conversation. And most MSP owners can't tell the difference.
Well, a bill change is the numbers going up, sign here, right? And a pricing conversation is, here's what we've delivered, what we're going to deliver. Here's what it's worth. Notice that everything you talked about was the cost. Nobody cares that your cost is going up. What they care about is what's in it for me. And when you skip that conversation, the client has nothing to compare the new price to except the old price. The old number is real. The number just got bigger. So of course they're going to push back.
And then you draw the wrong conclusion. You walk away thinking, my clients are cheap. They're so freaking cheap. And that's what Will told me. Point blank. Joe, dentists are cheap. They'll never pay more.
But here's the thing, Joe. Every owner says that about their vertical. It doesn't matter. They said, oh, you don't understand. Architects are cheap. Lawyers are cheap. We'll pick dentists. At some point, I expect a small business owner to come onto the show and explain why MSP owners are cheap. It's not the clients. It's the conversation. You've trained them to compare you on price by giving them nothing else to compare you on. So here's the reframe. You cannot raise prices on a client you don't actually know. Will didn't know his dentist. He thought he did. He'd been servicing them for 7-8 years. But when you asked Will to tell you what kept a practice owner up at night or what was driving their decisions about expanding that second location or what the revenue cycle looked like, he couldn't have told you. He knew their network. He didn't know their business.
And his QBRs proved it. Will's quarterly meetings were what I call speeds, feeds, wires, pliers. He'd walk in with a dashboard and a binder this thick that he was going to hand them. And here's your uptime. And here's how many tickets we closed. And here's how many patches we applied. And here's how many computers you have to change. And then usually right at the end, he'd make the uncomfortable ask. Your firewall is at end of life. We need to talk about replacing it. Or we should really add this new security service. It's always like, and every QBR ended with Will asking for more money. So nobody wanted to come to them. For more hardware. So nobody wanted to come to them. For a service the client didn't really understand. So nobody wanted to come to them.
Let's be honest, right? A QBR is boring. And that's the thing. When the only time you raise a money conversation is when you want more of theirs. You train the client to brace for impact every time you walk in. And no amount of, oh, but the value is here is going to undo that because you haven't done any of the actual work to know what value means to them or where the value is.
And the change for Will started when he replaced his QBR with SBRs, with strategic business review. And I want to be really clear about what that means because most MSPs hear strategic business reviews and they assume that it's the same meeting with a fancier name. And it's not. A QBR is you presenting. An SBR is you listening. A QBR is about the network. An SBR is about the business. A QBR ends with you asking for something. An SBR ends with you understanding something. And when Will sat down with his first dentist and ran a real SBR, the first thing that happened is that he shut up. 25 minutes of questions. Tell me about the practice. Tell me what's growing, what's working. Tell me what's hard. Tell me what you're trying to do next year.
And this is what changed Will's view of his clients. The dentist that Will thought was cheap was actually trying to open a second location. He was trying to add seats. He was trying to bring in more clients. Another was bleeding money on no-show appointments, didn't know that there was technology that could help. A third had a patient data compliance situation that if it ever surfaced would have ended the practice. And Will walked out of those meetings knowing things about his clients he'd not learned in 7 years of monthly invoicing.
Here's the key thing. The first step of raising your prices is not raising your prices. The first step is understanding your client well enough to build a valuable offering for them. Until you've done that, you have nothing to charge more for. You're just asking for more money for the same thing, the same managed services that they've been comparing you on for the last year.
So that's the prerequisite that most people skip. They want the price increase. They don't want to do the work. They send the email, they get the pushback, and they talk about their clients being cheap. That's the way it works. So, not to be accused of step inflation, we've got the 6-step price increase playbook.
Okay, so this is where it gets practical, folks. The process we'll follow is the same one we walk every coaching client through, the 6 steps. And we call it the price increase playbook. And I'll give you an overview so that you can run it in your own MSP starting next week. And pay attention to step 2. That's the one MSP owners always get wrong about which clients will actually leave. So step 1, you have to decide what your price should be. Before you ever talk to a client, decide what the right price actually is. Not what you think you can get away with. What is the right price? If you're at $125, you want to figure out is it $250? That means 3 things. You have to define the problem that you solve, the job your service does for the client. What is that? You have to assess the value you actually deliver in dollar terms. And then you have to set a price using what we call the 3x 1/3 formula. And that's really going to help you direct the cost.
3 times your cost is the floor because that's what it takes to run a real business. You got people, tools, growth, owner take, and that's kind of what you have to run a business. And then 1/3 of the value is the ceiling because above that, the client starts to feel like they get into that uncertain territory. You want them to feel like getting a deal. So your real price is between that numbers. And so when Will did the math, right? His floor was, I don't exactly remember, it's like $165 a user, and the ceiling was actually significantly higher than that. $600, $700, $800. And here he is charging $75 a seat. He was underwater on the floor. He was a fraction of his ceiling. And so the room for him to grow was enormous.
Then there's step 2. You have to calculate the impact and segment your clients into 3 buckets. And this step is what everybody skips. And it's the one that matters the most. So pay attention. You go through your client list and use a tool called the PETA sheet. Of course, that's your professional interaction temperament assessment. And for every client, you put them in one of 3 buckets. Bucket 1, clients who are likely to accept the increase. Bucket 2, clients who will likely leave. And bucket 3, clients who need special attention.
Now, here's what we see every single time. They put like 1 client in bucket 1, then a massive amount of clients in bucket 3, and then a bunch of clients in bucket 2. Like everybody needs special attention, and then some clients are going to leave.
And everybody's going to leave. Half of them are going to leave. So Will was convinced that 8 or 9 of the dentists were going to leave. The real number, after we worked through the sheet honestly, was 2. And they were the 2 we expected. The troublesome ones, the ones that were using 40% of the freaking help desk time.
To be fair, like he went into this thinking he was going to lose more clients, but he only did lose 2. And the point when we do this with clients, a lot of times what we're doing is just reassuring people that, hey, you're not going to lose as many clients as you think, as long as you go through the process, as long as you are selling value. And one more rule for that special attention bucket, right? Your price is your price. And your products are your products. So you don't carve up your offering to make the number work. It never works, guys. What you can offer is a different tier, or perhaps you can offer like a stepwise increase over time or a small bonus project. It doesn't cost you anything. But what you can't do is start unbundling services to give a discount, or you just end up managing exceptions forever. And you've just taught the client that everything is negotiable.
And then there's step 3. You have to improve your service and communicate the improvements. So before you raise a single price, you have to start delivering and communicating more value. For most MSPs, this isn't about adding new services. It's about telling the clients what you're already doing. I can't tell you how many clients don't know what you do for them. So most MSPs deliver really stellar service, but they don't tell anybody about it. And Will was a classic example. His team caught 3 major issues in a quarter, and the clients never heard a word. From their seat, nothing happened, which meant nothing was worth paying for. So Will started a monthly newsletter, useful advice, letting them know what was going on, what they were seeing in the industry, what his team had prevented and caught. Nothing fancy, just consistent communication.
And guys, focus on business outcomes. So it's like, even as we're talking here, we're talking about the technical stuff, what his team caught. But even when we talk that way, he's talking about the business outcomes, he's talking about how dentists grow, how they improve their business, and how he helps them improve their business, and things that they can do to use technology to improve their business. And this is crucial. It makes it harder for them to leave, because now all of a sudden they feel like they have something. And there's this principle in behavioral economics called loss aversion, and losing something is actually even more painful than than the benefit of gaining something. So when you start giving them this stuff, they're worried about losing it. And second, communication closes the value gap, right? Communication helps them see the value. No, most clients have no idea what you're worth. You probably don't have any idea what you're worth, to be honest. Like, everybody thinks that they're worth less than they are. The newsletter, proactive updates, heads up before they ask, all of that is teaching them what they're paying for.
Which brings us to step 4, your SBRs. And this is where you operationalize the conversation that we talked about in segment 2, which is Will sat down and planned the first round of SBRs. For each client, he decided what price increase he wanted to land on. He decided whether to introduce the increase immediately at the SBR or signal it and then implement it in 3 months. And he designed a slide deck, and he practiced and he practiced and he practiced. Got in front of the mirror and he practiced.
The choice of timing is strategic. If you're doing a small increase, you can land it at the SBR itself. If you're doing a bigger one, give yourself 90 days or 60 days between the SBR and the increase. Let them know that it's coming in advance. That 90 days lets the client prepare and lets you keep demonstrating value. For very large increases, you can stage it across 2 or 3 SBRs or half a year, or it doesn't mean that you have to go in and do it at one goal. And that's how Will got into doubling. He didn't do it necessarily in one jump. For some of his clients, he did it across 2 SBRs. He did it over 6 months, and he built that value story in between them.
Which brings us to step 5, which is schedule and conduct the actual SBRs themselves. So you reach out, you schedule, you put a reminder sequence in place. You make it easy for people to schedule with you. You give them a scheduling link. You show up. You run the meeting. The structure that we talked about earlier. 5 minutes to set the stage, 25 minutes of listening, 10 minutes of sharing, 10 minutes of the roadmap, 5 minutes of the next steps. And before you leave the meeting, you schedule the next one. We call it the BAM family. You book a meeting from a meeting. And if you walk out of an SBR without the next SBR on your calendar, half of them are never going to happen. So you have to make sure that you're in that conversation.
You're following the chain from time to time to time. And then there's step 6, Joe. Step 6.
There you go.
And this is the thing that turns the SBR from one-time meeting into a system. It's follow through. The SBR has to have consequences. The projects you committed to in the meeting, you scheduled. The changes you said you'd make, you make them. The communication you promised, you set it up. And if a price increase is staged, you remind the client at each step that the price increase is coming. You continue the conversation.
And Will did all of it. The newsletter went out every month, the roadmap items he'd committed to, the first SBRs were on the calendar within 2 weeks. By the time that the second SBR came around, the clients could see the difference. They could feel it. They were telling him. The second price conversation was so easy because they could feel it. They could see the impact. They were seeing more patients. Their systems were working better. Their scheduling was working out. Their operatories were always up and running. And that's because as they watch all that stuff play out over that time, it was good. 6 steps, 6 months. Monthly recurring went from roughly 40K to 80K. And he landed around 25K in new project revenue from upsells in half the book. So 2 fewer clients, which turned out to be a feature, not a bug. I mean, believe it or not, those 2 clients were using up 30 or 40% of his help desk time. And the dentist who Will swore that they were the cheapest clients on the planet weren't cheap. They just hadn't been given anything worth paying for yet.
Everything Will did is the shift from operating as an MSP to operating as a VSP, a business solution partner. An MSP prices based on hours and tickets, a BSP prices on outcomes. An MSP has QBRs that bore everybody to death and leave them crying in pain a BSP has SBRs that uncover revenue, reframe the relationship, and where they ask you when you are coming back to do this again. The entry point to that whole transformation, the one tactical thing that opens the door, is just simply learning to conduct the SBRs. So Will's pricing didn't change because he found a better email. It changed because he had one conversation that he'd been avoiding for 7 years.
Which is why we built the SBR Challenge. It's a 4-week cohort program for MSP owners who want to actually conduct their first strategic business review. Not learn about it, not download a deck.
Well, you can download a deck.
You can download a deck, but you're actually going to conduct one with a real client in 4 weeks. And you get the scripts, you get the outreach emails, you get the framework to run the meeting, the templates to follow up, the agendas, the weekly live coaching with Jeff and with me to troubleshoot real world stuff. The cohort keeps you accountable so that you actually do it.
And, you know, we did something funny here because we said you're going to have your first meeting within 4 weeks. But you know what we actually see is that people are getting revenue within 4 weeks. We're seeing people getting hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue within 4 weeks. They have those meetings in the first week, and then they come out with MRR, with projects, with stuff that they didn't even imagine. And it happens so fast because clients are desperate for this kind of communication. Will didn't start with a pricing strategy. That's where he started. He started with one SBR. The pricing came afterwards.
If you've been sitting on the same pricing problem Will was sitting on, this is the on-ramp.
So the link to learn more about the challenge is in the description. Go check it out. Come join us. We would love to have you there. And thanks for watching. If this was useful, subscribe. If not, subscribe your friend.
And see you next week.